Yo,
Yeah.
what's going on, everybody? What's up, Mike?
What's happening?
Hey, we're here on a back-to-back. We got a double header last night. We got a triple header tonight. We got a huge show. We got Jason High, we got Houston Alexander, and we got Sean Wheelock on the docket tonight. All three of them were involved in BKFC 21 the other day, which was an unbelievable event. 11 fights, 11 knockouts. Not one of them fights saw the third round. Should be a good show. Let's shout our sponsors real quick and get this get this show on the road. Here we go. First and foremost, we have the Fighter's Friend, thefightersfriend.com. Go there, use promo code MISH20, buy yourself some medibles, buy yourself some medicated vapes, some CBD, all that stuff to help yourself out. Whatever it does, it's supposedly good. We don't know because we are not in the military, but if we were not in the military, Mike would be smoking that thing right goddamn now. I'll tell you that much. Next up, we got Next Level Elite supplements. Go to nextlevelsubs.com, use MISH10, get yourself 10% off your final purchase. So, all the cleanest supplements, protein, creatine, test boost, sleep aids, brain food, all that stuff. Go on there, get it, use the promo code, help yourself out, help the show out. And last but not least, Massage Therafix. If you are a veteran or an active duty military member, go to holdenhandsmassage.com. Book yourself an appointment with Miss Jackie. If you are not, if you are a civilian, you can still go see Miss Jackie. She's the best in the business. She'll find your pain. She'll get rid of it. Go to massagetherafix.com and book yourself an appointment. Okay, let's jump right into it. What do you say, Mike?
Yeah, man, let's do it. I'm over here sharing it. Everybody make sure you like, and share.
All right. First up, we got Mr. Jason High, who was successful in his bare knuckle debut at BKFC 20 just last Friday with a second round knockout over Rocky Long. Here he is. What's going on, sir? How are you?
Doing good. Doing real good. How are you guys?
We're good, man.
Great.
Yeah.
You know, you have had a long and very successful career in MMA, and now all of a sudden you have ventured into the bare knuckle realm, which a lot of people are doing nowadays, fastest growing sport in the world. What was it like making that walk to the squared circle for the first time and actually stepping in there and swinging some bare hands?
It was cool, man. I mean, I had a lot of fun, and really, it's different, but it's not that much different at the same time, if that makes sense. I'm sure you guys may have heard that before, but yeah, it's it feels a little bit different, but then it feels the same at the same time. It's just a fight at the end of the day.
Now, you know what? I got to tell you this right quick. My first memory of ever seeing you fight, this is no bullshit. I was deployed 2008, 2009 overseas, and on the AFN network, we get all the pay-per-views. We get all the UFC. We get all the everything, right?
Right.
Affliction, Day of Reckoning. That card was on, dude. That card was stacked to the freaking rafters with unbelievable fighters. You were the co-main event against Che Haran. You did not come out on the wing end that night, but that is where I remember you first from. And then you had a long career after that. But my ass was sitting up at 4 o'clock in the morning in a very dark barrack on a TV about this big with the sound down, like this close to the TV, watching all that shit.
Nice.
Yeah, man.
That's actually the first place me and Sean Wheelock and I met. Also, is a long time ago, like you said, 2008, 2009, in Anaheim. Yep, Day of Reckoning. That was a long time ago, man.
And I had just told Mike that. I said, hey, man, I didn't even know this when we booked this show, that two guys that are on the show tonight, I watched them in a little barracks building in Kuwait 12 years ago. It's a small world, man. Everything comes around for a reason.
Yeah, it's definitely a small community, the combat sports community, so yeah, it comes back around pretty quick, I mean, not quick, really. 12 years is kind of a long time ago, but, I guess I'm showing my age a little bit. But it doesn't seem like that long ago,
I got to tell you, dude, you didn't look your age the other night. Friday night, you came out there, you did your thing. You looked very comfortable in the squared circle, and you had that fucking dope-ass fur coat on afterwards.
Yeah. So, I haven't rocked the fur. You got to stay warm out there,
Yeah. So how you feeling about your place in the 155-pound division in the BKFC? There's some killers in there. You got your sights set on anybody?
I feel really good, man. I fought that fight at 65, so I don't think I'll be going out at 155 anymore. But I would like to fight at 175. I will make 165 if everything, if the other details look good. But 75 is probably where I'm more natural at. For this rule set, I think. But I felt really good, man. I mean, I think this rule set kind of suits my style pretty well. So, I didn't intend to like become a bare knuckle fighter, but I definitely think this rule set is like in my favor in a lot of matchups.
Hell yeah.
So, what surprised you about bare knuckle, if anything at all?
I'd have to say the most surprising thing was in the back, like just being used to like MMA fight show pacing, and like we're in the back and I'm like, oh, I got 6 fights before me. It's gonna be, I'm not gonna fight until 10:30, 11. That's what I'm thinking, But then, we're in the back and these things start to roll and like 8:45 and I'm like, oh wait, I'm next. I'm on deck. So that was kind of cool, man. I got to go out and like, I got to hang out with my guys that came up and watched me, and we were out of there by 11, 11:15. It was great. So that was probably the most surprising thing, like the show pacing, But as far as like in fight, man, I guess another surprise. I see how guys get cut up in this shit because the punches they really don't feel as hard as like somebody punching you with the glove, like when you get punched, it's so easy for it to glance off, you know what I mean? So I can see people get cut, like even a shot that's not hard, if it glances the right way, it's going to slice you open. So it's probably a huge misconception publicly about like, how dangerous this is compared to other combat sports. And it's actually probably much safer because, it looks bad, but technically it's probably much safer because like your skin doesn't catch skin like a glove would, you know what I mean?
Right. The leather on the glove.
Yeah. So you just by measure of that and by measure of you not having anything to protect your hands, if you bounce off something really hard, you're not laying into those punches the same way you would. Like in MMA gloves, people think MMA gloves are small, but you have a nice wrap under that thing. I mean, you can pretty much hit whatever you want, like you don't have to be like picking your targets when you're throwing shit. You're just you're throwing and you're not really worried about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. They did a extensive study on that, like comparing boxing, bare knuckle, and MMA. And like you just said, like there's much less strikes thrown. There's less damage to the brain. The only injuries, like not the only, but the most injuries in bare knuckle are superficial little slash cuts, whatever, maybe the occasional broken bone, but very rarely do you get the concussion side of the house, which with gloves on, you might take 4 times more punches to the head.
Yeah. The leather. I mean, I think you can really hit people much harder with any kind of hand protection. Like, and people, we know this, but most people don't know this. Like the gloves are there to protect my hands. They're not there to protect you, if I'm punching you. So it's interesting. It's an interesting argument. And I'm interested to see going forward if like the public is able to get over that, as far as bare knuckle goes, so we'll see.
I would kind of compare it to football. When I was younger.
Same thing in football. If you take the pads off, there'd be less brain damage. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, you put them pads on, man, you can really lay into some people. With the pads off, you can lay into somebody, but you might not do it again,
Yeah, you're going to be hurt after that.
Yeah.
You can't make a career hitting people like that with no pads.
No.
Yeah. So yeah, that's another interesting point as far as a widely accepted sport, football.
Right.
Oh yeah, and Jason, I could tell you right now that last Friday getting out of there by 11:15 isn't the norm. I wouldn't get
No.
I wouldn't get used to that. Because we've been to several of them, like just covering the events live, and sometimes you're walking out of there at 2:00 in the morning. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But Friday night, that was a beautiful thing. 11 fights, 11 knockouts. Not one of them saw the third round. It was phenomenal. Now 165, you got some killers in 165. You got some people looking for fights. Are you looking to jump right back in there? They got several events coming up in the next month, and in November they got the New York card and also the Miami card, November 12th. You trying to get right back in there, or you?
Miami in November sounds fucking great to me. I'm in Kansas City. You know what Kansas City's like in November?
It must suck.
Not fun.
It's not Miami, that's for sure.
Yeah, we're up northeast, so Rhode Island and Connecticut.
So you guys like Miami in November, also.
Hell yeah,
yeah.
I like Miami year round.
Michael Hanowski says a good fight would be Elvin Brito. Brito, are you familiar with Elvin? He's kind of like one of the pioneers of this bare knuckles since it started back in 2018.
He's ranked number 1 in 165, and then it's like Caleb Harris. Yep.
Oh yeah, I know Caleb.
Yeah. Joe Elmore.
I know. I honestly don't know too many of these guys. I know Caleb because I went to a show a couple years ago. This must have been like 2019 in Biloxi, and me and Caleb went out to dinner one night. Just we were just. I think actually Sean Wheelock hooked us up. He's like, "Hey, Caleb, you're going out to eat. Jason's here to check out the show, blah, 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 So we just went and kicked it. So he's a cool guy. I like Caleb.
Yeah, really cool.
Yeah, man, I mean, in the next couple of days, I'm going to check out this division. I don't know. It's like I said, 65. I don't love making 165, So, but I will make 165. 75 would be much better for me.
What did you think about Mike Richmond at 175 the other night? He looked pretty damn good, huh?
He looked good. Yeah. He's looked good. I've seen a few of his fights actually. He looked good against that taller guy. I think he was on the card.
Marcel Stamps.
Right? Yeah. So he's tough, man. He looked really good.
Is your are you putting MMA in the rear view, or is this just like are you going back and forth now?
Yeah, man, I'm at a point where like I like to fight, but I don't really need to fight, So if there's something interesting to me that in MMA that comes up, I'll take it, And if this bare knuckle keeps going, I'm down to fight in bare knuckle too. Like I said, I honestly think that the rule set, as far as like 2-minute rounds, clinching, holding and punching, I think like I'm uniquely suited for this rule set, So I'm down to fight pretty much wherever. Like I'm here to get paid, So yeah. Other than that, I'll probably just if nothing interests me, then I'll just fall back into coaching and doing my other things. I got other shit going on.
I was just going to ask you, when you're not fighting, what are you doing? Do you got a family? You got kids? I know you're a you're a realtor, right?
Right. Yeah. I'm working that pretty much daily. I'm doing something with that, and then I got a 12-year-old, and I got one. I got one on the way, man, on the 22nd. So on the 22nd of October, we got another girl on the way, and yeah, I'm coaching at Glory with Kraus and all my guys. So. Yeah, I got a few things going on, man. Like I like to fight, and I can still fight. So I'm gonna do it if it makes sense. I'm gonna do it while I can, because I know the ride doesn't last forever, So that's where I'm at,
So there was a question over here from Vince Anderson. Would you do BKMMA?
MMA? Yeah. I mean,
yeah,
fuck yeah. Whatever, I'm fucking down to fight. Like
down for everything.
Yeah, I mean, God, dude, like I got my first fight when I was like 7 years old, dude. So like, and then I started wrestling, and I wrestled the kids club in high school and college. Got into a bunch of not a bunch, but a fair amount of street fights, and then in that time, and then I started fighting for real. So whatever, man. You know, I train every day. Like I'm not a hobbyist. You know, so you guys, you know, you may not hear about me, but I'm in the gym 6 days a week. You know, so it's whatever. You know,
I mean,
if you guys want to see me, they know where to find me.
Like, what was this fight at? Sorry, Kyle. I was gonna ask, what was the fight at 7 years old about? Was it like a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles? You know, who would win Mighty Morphin Power Rangers versus, you know, Thundercats?
Well, I mean, it wasn't just like, I don't even.
Someone took a snack pack.
Yeah, it was just like, man, like when I was that age, and the place that we were. There's not one of my 12-year-old. The place that we were, I was, you know, I was a quiet kid, and I just looked like an easy mark, so I would get picked on, and I ended up in a lot of fights, you know. And initially, I wasn't like defending myself. I would just let people beat me up, you know. And then, yeah, one time I came out from school, and my dad was there to pick me up. And he saw like that I was roughed up, and he asked what happened. I told him what happened, and he asked if I fought back, and I told him nah, you know, and he made me walk home, you know. So that, you know, that, and after that I started fighting back, and I basically, like, I would ask my mom to put me in like some kind of combat sports. I was asking for whatever I saw. I was like, I want to go do this karate, or I want to check out some boxing. She would never let me do it. And she didn't know that I was getting picked on because I didn't tell her. But you know, that's the reason I wanted to do that type of stuff. So I would just go to school and do the shit I saw in like Jean-Claude Van Damme movies and like that. I would just go try stuff in these fights, you know.
Did you drop down to a split and punch the dude in his nuts?
Nah, I didn't do that one. I was just like spinning around and throwing shit. I was doing spinning shit before I knew what I was doing. You know?
Spinning moves only.
With the dim mock. There we go.
Yeah.
So what was the first discipline that you started in? Was it regular karate? Or
wrestling. No, it was wrestling. Yeah, wrestling was the first thing that the first combat sport that my mom would let me jump in. And I think it's because it looked like, you know, to an uneducated person, it doesn't look like a combat sport, you know?
Right.
So
because they're not throwing kicks and punches and whatnot.
Right. You know,
your mom felt comfortable.
I always tell her, I'm like, hey, you remember when you wouldn't let me do karate and boxing? Now look at me, you know?
Yeah. Wrestling's rough, man.
No, I tell
wrestling's way harder. Wrestling's harder than all this other stuff.
It's rough.
Like hard work. Wrestling's hard work.
It really is. And Mike and I, if you didn't like, mission accomplished, we're all about combat sports and combat veterans here. So we bring on, because we're both veterans ourselves.
Nice.
I tell everybody, I went through basic and AI, like basic training. And I told everyone's getting smoked in basic training. Everyone's getting they're getting killed out there. And I'm like, this is nothing. You should try a 3-hour wrestling practice in high school wrestling.
Yeah, you really should.
You guys have no fucking clue what cardio is unless you're throwing up in a garbage can fucking 6 times in 3 hours in a 90-degree gym, running stairs and shit like that, dude. Come on.
Yeah, you know, it's borderline child abuse.
It really is. And like, I don't know if it's the same. Like, you and I are the same exact age. Like, we're both gonna have a birthday like within 2 months of each other in a couple months. We're the exact same age.
Nice.
We went to high school 20 plus years ago.
Yeah.
I have no clue. I wouldn't even know. I would have to go visit my old high school to see if they still smoke these guys like they used to. I don't know.
I think it's a little different now. Just I've been in I've been back to Nebraska. I wrestled in Nebraska, and I've been back there a couple times just to work out with those guys, and it feels a little different to me, you know, just less heavy-handed, you know.
I think it's the way of the world.
Yeah, might be.
Yep.
I wonder how that's gonna transition, like in the future. Like, are we gonna, you know, because you know, up to this point, people are just progressing and getting better and better and better and better. But do you think that if people aren't as hard on training as they were before, that we're going to start seeing a decline in skills?
Yeah, there's kind of like a point of diminishing returns between like technical and hard nosed, like there's a break even point and like a optimization point. So I have no idea where that's at, but everybody's looking for the line, I guess. It's kind of the ongoing training goal is like to find the line, like not find the line and not go over it, as far as like how hard you train, So right. Yeah, it's definitely, even from back when I started MMA, there was, hard sparring, you're doing that 2 or 3 times a week, that type of thing, it's just like, we don't do that shit anymore.
Right.
I don't really know anybody that does that anymore,
I was gonna say, you got guys like Max Holloway who just doesn't spar anymore at all. What I mean?
And lands the most punches ever in an MMA fight after having a camp like that.
Yeah,
it's insane.
Yeah, it's guys are starting to treat themselves more like athletes instead of just like knuckleheads, So that's encouraging.
Yeah, it's. How do you feel about the new crop of MMA? Like, do you look at guys that are in your old weight division, like the Volkanovskis and freaking these new guys? Are you impressed? Like, do you wish that you were still running with these boys or what?
Well, the new guys, for by and large, like I think it's just like moving away from people being specialists, like when I started fighting, everybody had like a specialty, there was guys like me that came from wrestling. So they had the takedowns and the ground and pound. And there's like guys that came from boxing and kickboxing, jiu-jitsu guys. And I just think, the young guys are melding, they're blurring that line much better. Like these guys maybe wrestled in high school, but other than that, they've been training MMA. Like take a kid like the kid that I was mentioned is Jeff Molina's, because he started with me at like 14 years old, but he wrestled in high school and like he was pretty good, but what he's really been doing is just training all kinds of, he's been training jiu-jitsu, kickboxing, and like he could go into these separate disciplines and like hold his own, it's not like he could go into the room at Nebraska and like he would do fine in practice. He would be able to make through the practice. None of the technique would be over his head. He could hit all the drills. He would be a good drill partner. He could go live and be competitive with these guys. And the same is true in like a jiu-jitsu gym. He could go in a jiu-jitsu gym and like do the same thing, run the same program, So it's really like, I think that's where it's going. Like you see like less specialists. These guys are well-versed everywhere,
Yeah. I gotta tell you that I thought I was in shape, and like I started doing jiu-jitsu a couple of years ago, and I started, getting in there with during the pandemic, the gyms all closed, and we started doing like, behind the scenes classes. I don't know. I'm not going to dime anybody out, but we were doing
the same thing.
Yeah. We were doing them in a church.
Working out the whole time. Basically, we took 2 weeks off, I think.
Yeah, right. We were in a church down the street doing this.
It's part of your religion.
And I gotta tell you, man, it was the closest. Like we would do like an hour, like 45 minutes of like this guy Chris would teach us new technique, and then we'd free roll for like an hour and a half or whatever. And I gotta tell you, man, just rolling 5-6 minute rounds back to back for an hour straight is about the hardest cardio you'll ever fucking do in your life. I thought I was in good shape, and then I would like, I would think I was gonna die every fucking single night.
Yeah, this isn't the late 90s anymore, buddy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's hard work, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what we do on this show is other than, talking fights and talking careers and whatnot, we also like to have a little fun, and we do a little speed round thing where we ask some wild questions and see where your head's at. You want to try one?
Sure.
All right, man. Let's do it. Speed round with Mr. Jason High.
Let's go.
1-0 in the BKFC 21. Here we go. Number 1. Wildest thing you've ever done?
I ran across a freeway naked.
What?
Possibly, allegedly, maybe or maybe not on psychedelics.
What?
Nice.
With a few of my friends. I wasn't the only one.
Sweet. Like a 90, like Interstate 95 type freeway.
I-70. Yeah.
Damn, that must have been wild as hell.
You didn't let your 12-year-old hear that answer, did you?
She's not paying attention.
Yeah, that's what you think.
All right, number 2, Mike.
If you had to disappear and start a new life, where would you go and what would you be or who would you be? Like, what would be your new job?
If something like that went down and I had to disappear, I'd probably choose something simple to do, like a farmer in South America or Central America, something like that. If I have to leave, well, listen, come on, this is in the 90s. There's no pictures. Late 90s, maybe early 2000s. So I'd go somewhere secluded where nobody could find me and start a farm or something. So I wouldn't have to go out and get stuff because obviously I'm in trouble. I need to get away from somebody.
Well, just pretend you didn't. You know,
man. If I wasn't in trouble, then I'm not disappearing.
Yeah, witness protection. That's what I'm talking about. All right, number 3. Have you ever witnessed a family member come?
What is that?
Oh, what is that?
No. What do you mean? Like I walk into the nightclub?
I don't know. Mike.
No, you know what? I think that loaded wrong. It didn't save.
Oh, that was for a strip club owner. Jason?
Yeah, that was for a different show, but for some reason that didn't save. But this is a real one. What is the dumbest thing you have ever gotten into an argument about?
I have a 12-year-old, so we get in arguments about dumb shit all the time. Like, did I ask her to do 2 things or 3 things? Come on, does it matter? I mean, just shit like that. I get into an argument she'll argue with me about literally anything. So she's,
See,
you know what? Oh, dude, you know what irks me more than anything? Like you and I have older kids. Mike's on his way there. Mike has how old? Mike 4 and 2. 4 and 2. So you don't know yet.
You're still pretty agreeable at those ages.
Dude, repeating yourself.
Oh yeah,
is oh my fucking god.
Come on, get used to it, buddy.
Ooh, if there's anything that your kids will do to make you want to choke slam through a fucking wall, it is making you repeat yourself. Like, put your shoes on. Hey, get your bag. It's time to go. Get your shoes on. Get your bag.
Come on.
Hey. What the fuck are you doing? Get your shoes on. Oh my god, it's like every day, dude.
Yeah, every day about all the dumbest things.
And then like my younger one, I'll be like, Nolan, and he'll turn and look at me, and I'll be like, did you hear anything I just said? I just said something 5 times. He'll lose. What? I'm like, oh, you fucking little bastard, man.
Yeah. He's trolling you.
What, you talking? Oh man. Yeah. Anyways, number 5. What is your secret talent?
I can juggle.
Really?
Right? Yeah. I mean, I can't juggle well, but I can get it a little bit.
Would you like to show us? Do you? Where are you in the kitchen? There's some knives somewhere, some chainsaws.
No, I can only juggle balls.
Yeah, tell your daughter to bring you in 3 eggs.
Yeah.
No. I'm right by the fridge. I'm not doing eggs because then I have to clean that up. I'm gonna drop it for sure.
Hey, it's funny because Joe Ivy says in the comments the last time someone said that it was Zach Kalmus. Zach Kalmus is a heavyweight for the BKFC, and this dude attempted to juggle eggs until he broke like 3/4 of a dozen of them on his floor. And then the rest of his interview, he was like cleaning them up with paper.
No, I'm not doing that. No.
All right, man. Well, you know what? You are awesome. And like your dude, your performance at BKFC 21, there was a few of them that I was like really excited about. And one was because I knew you from the past. And I was like, man, I hope he really fucking shows up and does something big. And you did. The performance was great. You looked great. We look forward to seeing you back in the ring soon. hopefully November 12th, Miami. I got a buddy of mine from Thailand. His name's TJ Chang, 165 pounds. They're looking for an opponent for him. I think that'd be a good one for you if you want to cut down to 165 again.
Mm.
I don't know.
There's no champ at 165 yet.
There is no champ.
TJ Chang, was he a Muay Thai guy?
He's actually like a pedigreed boxer. Like he's like a legit old school boxer. And if you ever check him out, he really embraces the bare knuckle fucking old schoolness. He even got the mustache and everything. So
Nice.
I think you and him would be a good scrap. So
okay, well,
something to think about. I just did a
check
little
this out.
matchmaking for everybody here.
Elvin Brito, there he is.
Oh, Elvin
That's
Brito.
the number 1 ranked 165 pounder right there. Unless you want to take a step up in competition.
Elvin
Leon Brito. Elvin Brito.
El Bandito.
Yeah, El Bandito.
What's up?
From Puerto Rico.
Elvin Leon.
Elvin Leon Burrito.
Right.
Elvin Leon.
I mean,
the bare knuckle Bandito Burrito.
Sure. Yeah. All right. He can get this work.
Elvin.
There we go.
Man, I hope you can do that because you know what? You are a big enough name and you are a big enough talent to throw straight in there 1-0 against the guy like Elvin Brito. It makes sense. I mean, all the fucking BKFC super fans out there will be like, oh, what are they doing throwing a 1-0 guy against fucking Elvin Brito? Blah, 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 blah. But you know what? They don't obviously have any idea what you've done in your career. So everybody shut the fuck up. Go ahead. Let's make that.
Nobody said anything yet. Relax.
Let's put a paycheck on the
you
table.
Tell him no. You tell him to shut the fuck up.
I'm telling him. Listen. Hey, Jason, they have a hard time matching the right people up. You know what I mean? We're just trying to do our part to do that for you. You know what
That's
I mean?
right.
We'll see how it shakes out.
Yeah.
We'll see.
All right, man. Well, before we let you go ahead and shout out anybody you want to shout out. We got your sponsor. I'm going to throw it up here in the bottom. And
yes. All my guys at Glory MMA and Major Pack. What's up? Thanks for having me, guys.
Absolutely.
Yeah, hey, before we let you go, what is Trap Variety? What is that?
Oh, Trap Variety is it's a podcast we used to do. We haven't really done it in a long time. We kind of discontinued it. Trap House Variety Hour. Yeah, it was a cool little podcast with my buddy Ramon Larkin we used to do. So we might bring it back. I don't know. Anything can happen.
Was it a victim of the pandemic?
No.
No, you guys just got busy.
Yeah. We did it for a couple of years, and just kind of we weren't able to keep doing it. So.
All right. I saw it on your Twitter, and I was wondering what that was all about. But we got a friend of yours coming right up after you, Mr. Sean Wheelock.
Mr. Sean Wheelock. Tell him I said hello.
I will. I'll let him know. And thank you so much for coming on the show. We hope to see you back in the squared circle soon.
Okay, guys. Thanks for having me.
Take it easy.
Thanks, Jason.
Bye. All right, that is the man himself, Jason High.
Yeah, it's kind of cool how this show has been put together with the guests that are on it, and then the history that the guests have together, and then also in your life, how that all connects that way. And
I know,
maybe you could tell Sean Wheelock when he gets on here in just a moment, like what you were just telling Jason High.
I will.
It is it's pretty cool.
Yeah. All right. So with that said, our next guest is in the green room, the virtual green room. How cool is that? It's like the Matrix, man.
It's blowing my mind.
We got the man himself, the voice of the BKFC, Sean Wheelock. What is going on, sir?
Great to see you guys. I got a frame. Yeah, there's the UFC 1 poster. So there's the UFC 1 poster and there's the BKFC 1 poster side by side in my little home studio office here in Shawnee, Kansas. Thanks so much for having me on the phone. Yeah, you were, man, from Olathe, Kansas, and Jason High. He lives about 5 miles south of me, to Shawnee, Kansas. So Jason's the coolest, man. I knew who Jason was. I first commentated him at Affliction in 2009 and wound up training at his gym. And what a cool guy. I was so happy to commentate him in BKFC.
I wanted to tell you this. I had just told Jason that 2008, 2009, I was deployed overseas, and we used to get all the events, all the pay-per-views, the UFCs, the Affliction, and all that stuff was free on AFN. And I remembered watching him in the co-main events against Jay Haran
Jay Huron, that's right.
Dude, and you were friggin' commentating it. And I told Mike that. I'm like, dude, you know how weird it is that we booked these two guys 12 years after I deployed, and my stupid ass was, it's like 4 a.m. and like the TV's this big. It's in a pitch black barracks. I don't want to wake up anybody that's sleeping in their bunks because they get all butthurt about me watching MMA at 4 o'clock in the morning in the dark. But I'm like, dude, 2 of the 3 people we got booked for tonight, I watched them back then on my deployment. It's fucking so cool.
Very cool.
Yeah, it's crazy, you guys, with combat sports, and I'm very fortunate, that I do most, if not all, combat sports, and the people that you see and you run into, and maybe someone that you commentated, and now you get to work with them as as your co-commentator, or matchmakers that you work with, or people in operations or producers. I had a great experience on Triller on Saturday night. What's called in the business your A1 and your A2, your lead audio guy in the truck, and then the secondary audio who's with the commentators. That's Lance Gordon and Steve Gill. I worked over 100 Bellators with those two. And I've only worked maybe 5 shows since I left Bellator in 2015, or they asked me to leave. And it was so cool to see those guys. And that's what this business is about. Somebody like Jason High, I commentate him against Jay Huron, and we're talking, 12 years later, and then I commentated him against Rocky Long in BKFC.
Yep.
And you had to be impressed. Like, with Jason High looked as good as ever in that fight. It was unbelievable watching him in there in the BKFC ring.
Yeah, I knew that he would be great. So as backstory, and I came in late. I only heard the end of the Jason High interview as I was waiting in your green room. But Jason High came to one of our shows in Mississippi, and I want to say this is maybe BKFC 5 or 6. I'm great with dates. I can tell you every date. I can tell you where we were. I can tell you every fight, every result, the hotel that we stayed at, the restaurants we ate at. I can't remember. My brain doesn't lock in numbers, so forgive me on that. But we were in Biloxi, Mississippi. It was Jason. It was the Jason Knight Artem Lobov 1 fight. And Jason High came, and he came down from Kansas City. And he wasn't on mic or on camera, but he sat with Lytle and me at the commentary position, and he was really thinking about doing it. And I said, look, I'm just your friend. I'm not going to give you career advice, but I will tell you this is a first-class promotion. Dave Feldman treats people as good or better than anybody in all of combat sports. He's the head of Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship. And I said, Jason, this is you all day long. I've commentated you in MMA. You wrestled Division I in Nebraska. You're a black belt under Ricardo Laborio. That's the intangibles and the ingredients to be really successful in bare knuckle.
Listening to you talk about fighters and fighting and everything, I mean, you have a love for the game like not many people do. What put you on the path to combat sports?
Yeah, it's a great question. Before I go any further, I didn't properly say thank you for having me on the show. I very much appreciate you guys having me on this show. I'm always happy to do it and to be with fellow real hardcore fight guys such as yourself. So on your question, so I was someone who always wanted to be in sports, always wanted to be a commentator. Had I been a better athlete, I would have tried to have been a professional fighter, but I'm not athletic like people named Jason High. So the next best thing for me is to be a commentator. But I'm old enough to where they had tape recorders when I was a kid, and I found a box of tapes, and my kids don't know what a tape is or a tape recorder. And I had to show them, it was like, these are tapes. And it was like 8, 9-year-old me trying to do play-by-play of things, which is bizarre. So I don't remember a time when I did not want to work in sports or be a commentator. I watched UFC 1, and that's why I wanted to make sure we were properly framed with the poster. UFC 1, November 12th, 1993. My mom happily paid the $14.95. And I was a huge boxing fan. I was a huge pro wrestling fan. And everything came together. And at the same time, everything changed for me on that Friday night. And I knew that above all else, that's what I wanted to commentate.
I can tell you that I watched UFC 1 as well, but
awesome.
My friend Nick's dad stole it on the black box back in the day, where you could.
Dan Marciata told me he stole it on that black box too.
Yeah. I think I don't remember how you did it, but you could slide a card down the back of it. I don't remember. It was like whatever he used to do, but like we watched like the first 4 or 5 of them.
I'll tell you something crazy about that show. So the fact that you watched it and here you are in this industry. A late friend of mine who tragically passed away from cancer when he was still in his 30s, Adam Geller. He was my research producer year one of Bellator, and he went on to be a really successful research producer at the UFC. Adam watched UFC 1. He wound up working in this business. The person who wound up replacing Adam Geller, a guy named Corey Brady, the research producer, who I believe is still there at Bellator, he watched UFC 1. Ben Saunders, and he's in the book Art Davey and I wrote about Art creating the UFC, giving a testimonial. Ben Saunders watched UFC 1, and Ben said he watched that and he thought, I want to do this. And I think Ben was like 7 or 8 years old at the time. Said, I want to do this. And it changed his life. Dan Murgliata, who was a Muay Thai guy and was like, this is different to me. Those of us, yourself included, who watched it, it profoundly changed our lives. And I don't know another sporting event where people can say that. I used to be a soccer commentator, and I love soccer. Don't get me wrong. I not as much as fighting, but I do love soccer, especially Manchester United. And you hear about people talking about a World Cup final that they watched as a kid. But that was kind of the entry into the sport. That wasn't the life-changing moment for them. Maybe wrestling fans had that, maybe with a WrestleMania or a SummerSlam, or maybe even a Starrcade. But I don't know of anything like UFC 1 that impacted so many young lives and drove so many of us into this industry.
It had to be Taylor Tooley's tooth, or maybe what was his name? What was the dudes with the one glove? I can't remember. Oh.
Art Jimerson.
Yeah. Jimerson. Yeah, you know what was hilarious about UFC 1? If you go back and watch it again now, that's such a finely tuned sport, and everybody's so professional. It is like there was like one dude that was like 400-0 in bar fights.
Yeah.
It was like, remember
taxi driver.
He was like a taxi driver, 400-0 in street fights, and like it was like the funniest shit ever. When you go back and watch it.
Yeah, you know Art Davey, who's, if you guys know my relationship, I'm actually going to be in Vegas tomorrow, and Art and I are having dinner, and then on Saturday night we're speaking at the Association of Ringside Physicians for their banquet, talking about Art creating the UFC. Art Davey's philosophy was, you're 400-0 on the streets, cool, man. Yeah, you're 250-0 in underground fights, cool. Prove it. Come on. He would have people come to him and say, you know, I'm a monk and I can fly. He had a guy who said that he was a Green Beret, which was made up. And the guy's posing in a river shirtless, saying, I'm in a frozen river in Alaska. Art's philosophy was, whatever, man. If I choose you, you get a chance to prove it. And some people like John Hess, remember with SAFTA, who said, I'm unbeatable. I have this. Art never questioned if Art chose you, and he chose you for a lot of intangible reasons. What your body looked like, your personality, how you talked, your fighting style, how crazy was your martial art? Did you have a made-up martial art like ninjutsu or SAFTA? He would put you in, and most of those guys got found out. You know, I love Pat Smith, the late Pat Smith, who I actually had a chance to meet, who was a pretty cool guy. He was the most Pat Smith I thought he could be, and he was. And Pat Smith claimed that he was 250-0, and Art did some digging, and he had like 2 losses in professional boxing and like 4 in professional kickboxing. But that doesn't matter. Art said, go ahead, you know, announce him at 250-0. And then he immediately got heel hooked by Ken Shamrock, but that's okay.
You know what? It's like we just talked about, you're watching all that shit back in UFC 1 and blah, 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 blah. And I brought up the Affliction 2008-2009 deployment. On the 2008-2009 deployment, I found myself watching this movie called Forgetting Sarah Marshall.
Oh, yeah. Taylor Tooley, right?
Taylor Tooley. I'm like, that gigantic freaking Samoan dude. I mean, that Hawaiian guy right there. He looks so familiar to me. And I'm like, oh my God, it's Taylor Tooley. I'm like, what the hell? Here we go. 15 years after UFC 1, and he's starring in a comedy movie. Yeah, now he's an actor.
Yeah, Taylor Tooley still has a relationship with Art Davey. Most of those guys do. After Affliction, I had a chance to talk backstage with Tito Ortiz. He was obviously really disappointed, as you can imagine. And we were talking. I know Tito pretty well. We're not best friends, but we're certainly friendly enough that we're going to stop and have a conversation. And I said, you know, Art Davey told me to wish you well. And he beamed. And he was so excited when I saw Vitor Belfort. And I saw Vitor 5 minutes after he got out of the ring. and I said, Art Davie wishes you well. And just the same reaction. Art Davie impacted those guys' lives. The fact that Kevin Rozier, he heard from Kevin Rozier, who was in his 50s and wound up in a nursing home. It was horrific. Had a lot of traumatic brain injuries, which was just awful. Poor Kevin Rozier in a nursing home at in his 50s. I think when he was in his 40s, actually. Still would send a Christmas card to Art. Taylor Tooley still calls Art from Hawaii. Their relationships. Art hears from Jorg Bordeaux from the Netherlands all the time. It changed these people's lives. Even Taylor Tooley, the fact that he had just one fight and he got kicked in the face and he was really embarrassed by Jorg Bordeaux, he is the guy who fought in UFC 1. And over time, it doesn't matter that he lost. It matters that he was the guy who fought in the first fight in the first UFC.
Right.
He was one of those guys. And what I was going to ask you, you had mentioned Triller right there. Now, a lot of people segue into Triller real quick. A lot of people want to shit on Triller like real
for sure
for what they do, but like and I think I caught some flack for this the other night. Other than like Tito getting knocked out in 19 seconds or whatever, and Evander Holyfield looking like he should have never been in the ring, the I thought that the show itself, I'm like, man, they're really putting on they're putting on a damn good production right now. How do you feel about Triller as a whole? And I was surprised they had like a midweek Triller card, right?
We had so they have something called Trillerverse, which is a $2.99 a month package, which is monthly boxing cards. And these are real straightforward, no nonsense, hardcore boxing cards. Like our main event was an NABO title fight at 140. No celebrities, no music. It was just straight boxing. We did the same thing a month ago at Hulu Theater in Madison Square Garden. So they're going to be right now, as I understand, they're going to be 2 layers of shows. They're going to be the big shows, the pay-per-views, which is what we just saw with the Holyfield Belfort and Tito Ortiz, Anderson Silva card. Next month, they've already announced it. It's going to be the Kambosos Lopez world title fight. But then there's going to be these monthly. Maybe the best thing is, and I know you guys will get this reference, the old Tuesday night fights on USA. Absolutely. Straightforward. You usually had a title fight. Maybe it was like a USBA or an NABF or an NABO, but you had a title fight. You're going to have someone on the card who's like a 15-0 prospect who in 3 years are going, oh, yeah, I got to see that guy, and now he's a world champion.
Yep.
Those are the types of fights, and that's for $2.99 a month. So that was the Tuesday card. So it's these 2 layers of shows. I love it. It was such a cool experience for me because truly the 2 greatest companies who I've commentated for, and I include Pride and Bellator in this, and I had a blast. Pride I wasn't there long. Pride treated me great. Bellator did until Bjorn Rebney left, and then not so much. But the way I've been treated by David Feldman and Bare Knuckle, the way I've been treated by Ryan Kavanaugh and Triller is first class, 100 out of 100. The fact that I was able to do BKFC 21, didn't remember that number, in Omaha on Friday night, get on a plane, fly 5:15 a.m., get into Fort Lauderdale, and then do that Triller card on Saturday, and then another Triller on Tuesday. It's one of the better weeks that I've had professionally, and I do not take any of this stuff for granted. I like people, you would have said a maverick 10 years ago. Now people like to use the word disruptor, whatever. People like Art Davie, people like Bjorn Rebney, what he did when he hired me in 2009. People like what Jerry Millen did when he hired me at Pride when he was running the U.S. office in 2006. What David Feldman does, what Ryan Kavanaugh does. They're coming in. They're huge fans of combat sports, and they're saying, I'm going to do something different. And I was talking to Ryan Kavanaugh, and Ryan doesn't need a pep talk from me or anybody. He doesn't lack for self-confidence. But I said, I won't let you know that I spoke to Art Davie earlier today. This was on Saturday before our show. And I said, Art wanted me to pass along that he thinks you were a genius. And I know that meant a lot to Ryan, coming from the guy who created the UFC. Wow. And I said, Art wanted me to remind you that in Detroit, they put a warrant for his arrest. So any negativity that comes your way, it's going to pass. Don't worry about it. John McCain was on Larry King Live saying this Art Davie is promoting human cockfighting. Yep. Got a guy named Jim Coleman, who is the editor of Black Belt Magazine, which to anybody under 30, it's like, what's a magazine? I don't know that my kids know what a newspaper or magazine is, but in the 90s, Black Belt Magazine, if you were in the martial arts, was a pretty influential thing. he had a huge story on Art Davie is promoting dirty fighting, and this is the ruinization of respectful martial arts. You had Bill Wallace, who Art paid $5,000 to commentate UFC 1, who then wrote a story saying, this is the worst thing I was ever involved in. I'm embarrassed. I wish I wouldn't have done it. This UFC thing will never work, and I will never do it again. Well, one thing was right. He never did it again.
Yeah.
So that's the type of heat that you take. And, you know, I again, Ryan Kavanaugh doesn't need a pep talk from me, but you see the negativity, it's going to pass. It's because it's shaking things up in the industry.
You know, nowadays, now that we cover MMA as well, but now that we're like heavy into bare knuckle, and I tell a lot of the people that we've been friends with throughout the years that are in the boxing and MMA and whatnot that we're doing bare knuckle now, it's almost like the same. They're not like calling it human cockfighting or anything like that, but it's like they're like taken back by it. They're like, what do you mean? Like,
oh yeah,
bare hands? I'm like, yeah, like bare knuckles. And, you know, it's basically boxing, but you can clinch and you can dirty box and you fight inside a circle ring.
Yeah.
3 feet apart from each other, 2-minute rounds. And they're like, bare knuckle? They're like, they can't even fucking believe it. Now.
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah, completely. Yeah, you guys know people have a visceral reaction, you know, and one of the greatest things that happened to the UFC was when people stopped calling it no holds barred. Remember NHB? Mm-hmm. They stopped calling it extreme fighting. They started calling it mixed martial arts because people had that visceral reaction. Cage fighting, no holds barred. People have that visceral reaction. Bare knuckle, like people are fighting in the back of a Walmart parking lot or in like a tire warehouse. Without understanding it or having seen it, people get this visual picture or mental picture and they can visualize what they think it is. And it's nothing like that. So, you know, as a guy who I was a kid, I certainly wasn't involved with UFC 1 other than I was in the pay-per-view audience, as you said you were. I'm used to the criticism. I've been with David Feldman 2 years before he launched. So we're over 5 years now. He hired me as a consultant in June of 2016. Our first show was June of 2018. So I'm used to that. You know, I've always lived my life, guys. If you like it, great. If you don't like it, fine. I'm not going to tell you to watch Triller. I'm not going to tell you to watch bare knuckle. I'm not going to tell you to watch the UFC. I don't care. If you're a combat sport fan and you're with us, that's awesome. I love it. If you tell me you don't like it, I'll be like, cool. It's not for everybody. I don't like golf. I don't want to see golf banned. It just doesn't appeal to me. If you guys want to play golf, hey, that's cool. If you want to watch golf, cool with me. I don't know why fighting comes under such attack where people can't accept it as a sport, that people have to say, I don't like it. I don't think it should exist. I don't know that anything else in the sports universe takes that type of attack other than combat sports.
Yeah, MMA had some difficulties, we all know, and it took quite some time for it to be sanctioned in every state, New York being the last of all the states, and it was actually very recently that it became sanctioned and okay. And because of what you said, John McCain and all the stuff that he's had to say about it, really, people frowned upon MMA. And now we have bare knuckle. What do you think the projection is for bare knuckle and what's going on in the next, you know, so many years? Do you think it's going to have the same issues, or do you think it's going to be a little bit easier now that, you know, the United States has been broken in, to say, with MMA?
That's a great question. It's going to be a lot easier, and it's just acceptance. I think above all else, human beings fear the unknown. I just think for whatever reason, it's hardwired into our brains as human beings. People fear the unknown. And again, you get a visceral reaction to something like bare knuckle. When it's not the unknown, when you see it, when it normalizes, it's not so crazy. I remember the first time that I saw MMA on non-pay-per-view, which was the episode 1 of The Ultimate Fighter. I was like, wow, this is crazy. Like, it's actually on a regular television channel. Like, you didn't have to buy this. Like, anybody could flip through and see this. It was just insane to me. It was like a secret that I had been a part of, and now it was out to the world. And that's starting to be what's happening with bare knuckle. You know, we just had our first show in Nebraska. And that's significant because the head of the Nebraska Commission is Brian Dunn, a former fighter. He actually fought MMA and lost to my broadcast partner, Chris Lytle, before Chris was in the UFC. Dunn is one of the coolest people in all of MMA, had something like 80 pro fights. Really talented guy, just missed out on getting into the UFC. Brian is the immediate past president of the Association of Boxing Commissions, which also is over MMA in the United States and Canada. So for Brian Dunn's state to now accept and legalize and sanction and regulate bare knuckle is huge. We're going to Nebraska, we were just in Nebraska. We're going to Montana next month. First time ever in Montana. We're going to New Mexico. They've brought it on board. Alabama opened up for us this year. You know, Dave Feldman couldn't get a state until Wyoming, and that was in 2018. And the states continue to come. I actually got put on through the ABC. I used to be on the MMA Rules and Regs Committee. A brand new committee launched. Brian Dunn's actually the chairman, and it's the Bare Knuckle Committee. And a big part of that is reaching out to other commissions, not pushing it. If you don't like it, that's fine. I'm buddies with Andy Foster, who runs the California Commission. He said, Sean, I don't like it. I said, cool, Andy. It's not for everybody. Except for me, it's not for everybody. But for the states that are interested and the commissions that are interested, this is how you do it. You know, you're seeing, yeah, people get cut, people are bloodied. I knew there wouldn't be concussions because I think as fight guys, we know that when you have bare knuckle, you're not going to hit really hard on the hard targets. I thought there would be more hand fractures. I think in like 260 fights, 280 fights in bare knuckle, there'd been something like 5 or 6 hand fractures, which is way below MMA and really, really below boxing. Cuts, lacerations, you know, to my wife, that's kind of gruesome. To a fight doctor, they're like, hey, that's great because I don't want anybody to get brain damage. Right. And you're not seeing the concussions in bare knuckle, and you're certainly not seeing the hospital transport. You know, to say a combat sport is safe is ridiculous because it's people fighting. It could be Taekwondo in the Olympics where they're just touching each other and someone, I guess, could take a toe in the eye or something. It could happen. But the threshold with bare knuckle, it doesn't have to be safer than MMA or boxing or Letway or Muay Thai. It just can't be less safe. It's actually proving medically right now to be more safe in terms of brain damage, in terms of orbital fractures, in terms of hand fractures. What it's also proving to be is it's not less safe than the other sports.
Right. Well, we had John Nutt on, the crazy man.
John's the man.
Yeah, we had the crazy man John Nutt on, and he talked about Bare Knuckle Kingdom up on the hill there, the one that they put on so far. And I can't remember what he said, 11, 12, 13 fights that night. You know, several people went to the hospital, not one brain injury, not one concussion. Yeah. It was mostly, it was like, I can't remember how many stitches. It was stitches and one handbrake.
Yeah.
Right. Of a dozen fights, you know what I mean? Not one concussion.
Just a few, nothing crazy.
Yeah.
John McCarthy said it best, and I'm gonna give John credit as I do, because most of my good ideas and good sayings I learned from John McCarthy, who is the absolute man. I adore John. I'm so thankful for my friendship and my relationship with John. John said, for people who don't understand bare knuckle, explain it like this. I want you to put on this 10 or 12 or 16, even an 8-ounce boxing glove. Go to that wall and punch it as hard as you can. Boom. Now I want you to take it off now, bare knuckle, go and punch that wall as hard as you can. And if you're stupid enough to punch it as hard bare-fisted as you did with the glove on, you're not going to do that twice. And that's bare knuckle. That's why you're not seeing the concussions. That's why you're not seeing the orbital fractures. And that's why you're not seeing the hand breaks. And also, there's a distinction. There's bare-fisted and there's bare knuckle. When people are fighting in a Walmart parking lot, they're fighting bare-fisted. Bare knuckle, I know you guys know this, but for people watching who haven't seen it, the wrap is here. And I was talking to Jason High about this before his fight. The wrap is here and it extends down here. If you guys know any emergency room physicians or nurses, they'll tell you that the street fight breaks they see are wrist rolls, right? Because people, who usually get in fights have never trained. They really don't know how to fight. So they flop their wrist over and then they get the boxer's fractures here. Well, those are protected in bare knuckle. So you're exposing the knuckles. This is covered. This is covered. You're wrapped down to here. So that's why really you're not getting those hand fractures. You're not getting the breaks, because the two most likely breaks, the wrist rolls and the boxer's fractures on the top of the hand, are by and large protected.
Do they leave it up to the fighter on how much they want to protect their hands? Because you see some guys like Jay Fish, his
Right.
wraps are like way down low. He had barely like anything up on his hand. Then you see other ones like way up, 3/4 of the way up their hand. Do they leave it up, or is that up to the state?
Yeah, it's up to the state. There are states who make MMA fighters wrap their hands, and there are states that don't. We don't make MMA fighters wrap their hands in Kansas. I would say 95, if not 98% of them do, but we don't make them. When Tony Lopez fought Joey Beltran on BKFC 1 in Wyoming, he had one strip of tape, and that's for the judges, right? So it's the reason you put blue in. For people who don't know this, you put the blue and the red, so the judges can immediately determine which hand is landing in a jumble of hands. That's why you do that. So all the commission compelled him to do was to put one strip of tape, which was blue. He was the blue corner that night, one strip of blue tape. He had it totally exposed. Other commissions like Florida make you go up higher on the hand. But again, that's a commission or a state rule or bylaw. That's not the promotion. The promotion says you just have to have one strip to determine for the judges. I think it would be in one's best interest, and I told Jason High this, to wrap as low as you feel comfortable, because that's where the problems could happen, and that's where the problems have not happened in bare knuckle. But I know, yeah, like Jason Fish was a good example of that. We had a guy named Jeff Schiffens who did very low wraps, but most of the fighters, the men and the women, are going to that 1 inch to the knuckle. And they're going pretty far down. You don't want to go too far down on your forearm, because then it's like a cast and you lose flexibility, but going down enough to stabilize.
And some of them put the padding underneath the tape that it almost looks like the tape's like sliding around on their hand. I want to say like Britton Hart, now Britton Beltran, on one of her fights, she had like some padding underneath the tape. And like as the fight was going on, it looked like the tape was like moving up and down on her hand. I don't know how they could like stop that from happening. But.
You think that was the sleeve?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was gonna say when they fought in Florida, Knucklemania, I know there was like a sleeve that they introduced that they have since gotten rid of.
Oh, maybe.
So the reason, right? So the reason for that, Florida had in their rule that you had to have a glove. And so, because the Florida Commission is very smart, and like myself, they find ways to perhaps do things a little outside of the box. They said, all right, well, what's a glove? So Florida, to expedite bare knuckle fighting, took basically a neoprene sleeve, put it there that was fingerless, and said, that's our glove. I guess all the lawyers in Florida were happy with that. I thought that was really smart, really creative, and really ingenious by the Florida Athletic Commission. So a little bit of neoprene sleeve padding here doesn't impact anybody. It's still bare knuckle, and it made the lawyers happy at the State House.
Okay,
but they were able to close that loophole on both sides. They don't have to go through that anymore.
That makes sense. It looked like though it was like sliding around at times. You know what I mean? You get sweat on the there. Like that shit kept like moving up on her knuckles and whatever. But you know what? I wanted to ask you about BKFC 21. One fight in particular. You guys were you and we had Chris Lytle on last night, and we talked about it with him. You guys had the closest seat in the house to it. The Houston Alexander. We're gonna have Houston on in a few minutes. The Houston Alexander finish. Obviously, he had Wes Combs pretty much finished, but it was the second punch that is the controversy. 1 month earlier, we saw Melvin Gillard get DQ'd for hitting a downed opponent that might not have been down. He might not even have hit him, but blah, 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 blah.
Right.
What were your thoughts on the Houston Alexander finish the other night?
So I'll give a precursor and say I might have a different view from a lot of commentators, because I was a boxing referee for a long time before my broadcast career got going. I got appointed to the Kansas Athletic Commission, not as the executive director, but as a non-paid commissioner. It's kind of like being on the board of directors for a not-for-profit is the best way to describe it. Got appointed to the Kansas Athletic Commission in 2015. I've served on the MMA Rules and Regs Committee along with Chris Lytle. I'm on this new National Bare Knuckle Committee. So I do live in the regulatory world as well. I had a lot of discussions off air, not as the commentator, but as a guy who has experience as a regulator. This is what I said then. I said it to Kerry Hatley, the referee. I said it to David Feldman. I said it to Brian Dunn in Nebraska. My good friend Adam Rohrbach, the Kansas commissioner, was there just in an observer's capacity. He drove up because it's 3 hours from where he lives in Topeka, Kansas to Omaha. But we still got together and talked. And I validate Kerry Hatley, the referee. You know, Kerry Hatley is a stud, man. You know, he's Texas's #1 referee. He does so many UFCs. He does so many Bellators. He's probably the finest kickboxing referee in the history of the United States. This was his bare knuckle debut. I was there. Lytle, I'm sure, said the same thing. Once the punch landed, Wes Combs is out. Whatever happened afterwards does not determine the ending sequence of the fight. If you want to fine Houston Alexander, that's up to the commission. I do not like to vacate a win when the fight is over. It's the equivalent of, I would think, in MMA. If somebody choked their opponent unconscious, they put them in a rear naked choke, they don't tap, it's a technical submission, they're out. They get up and then they maybe do like a little slap on their head or they spit on them. Is that a fine situation or is that a DQ situation? To me, that's a fine situation because I don't want to vacate that win. Wes Combs was 100% slept by that punch. I know Houston pretty well. I commentated him in Bellator. I don't think there was any malice in his heart. I think that's a 49-year-old MMA guy with all of his MMA instincts in his home city of Omaha with all these people in this huge crowd cheering him on. And he just basically lost himself and kind of forgot what sport he was in. So it's not for me to say if he should be fined because that's up to the Nebraska Athletic Commission. Fines generally, not always, but generally are not a promotional decision. They're a commission decision. But I will tell you unequivocally, no way that win should be vacated. No way it should be a DQ. No way that should be a no contest. Houston Alexander won that fight. You might not like what happened afterwards, but it did not change the outcome of the fight. And for me, looking at it as a regulator now, the absolute threshold, did those actions that people deem illegal, did they alter the outcome of the fight? No way.
Right. I do
Lytle
believe
said the same thing, right?
Lytle did say that he was out before the second shot.
Yep.
But I honestly don't remember if he said that he should be DQ'd or not. I don't think he said
I don't think he thought so. Chris and I actually drove. We usually go to the airport. We usually get early morning flights. In this case, I had to get to Triller, but normally we're just trying to get home to our families. And I recall him. I know that we both knew that Wes was out. I recall Chris thinking that DQ would have been the wrong decision.
You're actually the first person that I've heard say, do not affect the outcome. I mean, don't take away the W, but a fine.
Yeah.
Nobody's really brought up a fine.
There has to be a deterrent, right? I mean, you can't
Absolutely.
just have somebody hitting somebody because then everyone will be like, well, it was an accident. Yeah, I just did it, And so it's at some point, there needs to be, at some point, I just feel like there has to be some action taken.
No,
to
and
deter
I agree.
them.
Okay, so it's never fair to compare one sport to another, but bear with me on this analogy, right? So I'm a big Kansas City Chiefs fan. So let's say on Sunday on week 1, after the Chiefs defeat the Broncos. After the Chiefs defeat the Broncos, let's say Patrick Mahomes goes up and he sucker punches. You name it. Baker Mayfield, you name it. Did the Chiefs vacate that victory or does Patrick Mahomes get fined? That's it. The result was over. Nothing changed the outcome of that game. So once the outcome is settled, that to me is the end of should this be vacated to a DQ or no contest. What will never happen, and this is tough for fighters to understand, and I know this from the commission side, is a fighter will think, well, now I will get the win. That will never happen. It's either going to be a change to a no contest or that fighter will lose by disqualification. But you don't get the win. That just is not how that happens. And on the Melvin Gillard situation, I disagreed with that too. I absolutely disagreed with that. I thought that was the wrong call.
Yeah, Melvin's had a rough stretch.
Yeah, he has.
2021's not been nice to Melvin Gillard.
Yep.
Oh man, wow! I completely lost my train of thought. But it's a tough spot to put a guy like. Houston Alexander, and I know that I'm just like making excuses for him now, but he has fought MMA professionally for 20 years.
He's 49 years old. Absolutely.
He's 49. And like you could see as soon as he landed that right, he was already going into that second punch.
Oh, yeah.
And it's not like Hendo knocking Bisping on his ass and then jumping up in the air and landing the
right.
You know what I mean? It was already, the second punch was already kind of in route after the first one landed. Combs hit the ground, and the second one was already on the way down.
Well, think about this too. So let's say the punch that drops Wes Combs doesn't sleep in it. It doesn't even flash him. It just knocks him down. Okay, like the Vitor Belfort uppercut on Holyfield on Saturday night, just knocks him down. He's off balance, and then Wes throws that punch. Is that a disqualification? No chance. Might be a point deduction, but if the fight's not over, is that so egregious that you're now ending that fight? I absolutely don't think it is. As a guy who refereed a long time in boxing, I don't think that is at all. To DQ someone, it's got to be like super egregious, or it's got to be repeated over and over and over and over again. In soccer, it's called persistent infringement. It's the same small foul, and you do it over and over again. That to me is the only DQ threshold. Fines are there. You know, these guys are professional. I'm not saying that Houston should or shouldn't be fined, but fines are there as a deterrent. Right. For bad behavior, bad sportsmanship afterwards, they're professionals. You can always fine them, and if they're amies, you can always suspend them.
Now, you know Houston for a long time. Houston's been, like you just said, he's 49. He's been in the game for 20 years. He's fought the biggest of the best names. Where do you see a 49-year-old Houston Alexander in the BKFC? Do you see him like maybe fighting a Chris Sorrow or someone like that at 205? Or, I mean,
he weighed in at 199.
He weighed in at 199. So you think like you're thinking 205ers maybe. You got Lorenzo Hunt and Hector Lombard and Ezatula Kakar, and you got Chris Sorrow. Where do you see Houston going from here?
You know, I don't know his motivation, and I truthfully don't know his contract. It made sense for Houston to be on this card. I mean, when you think about like some of the leading lights of Nebraska MMA, you're talking about people like Steve Jenham, who won UFC 3, Jake Ellenberger, Ryan Roberts, who was on the card and won, Ryan Jensen, Houston Alexander. You know, these were early old school guys who are now in their 40s and 50s, who were really pioneers of that. So it made 100% sense that the first bare knuckle card and first BKFC card in Nebraska history has Houston Alexander in a prominent bout. He was on the feature fight. I don't know his motivation. I mean, he's 49. Physically, he looked amazing. He is so sharp mentally. He's got a really successful career. He's a radio disc jockey. I don't know if this was something he wanted to do once or if he wants to pursue it. If he wants to pursue it, he can be really successful. There's no doubt. I imagine that Lytle talked about this yesterday, but he's talked about this off the air, and we've talked about this just socially. Chris said that Chris just turned 47. He won't mind me telling you that. And the guy looks amazing, obviously. Chris said that he could not get through a full MMA camp. If he wanted to go back to the UFC, even though he feels that he could definitely win fights in the UFC, he knows that physically to get to that fight night, his body will break down. He said in bare knuckle, his 3 bare knuckle fights, or if he does a boxing, Triller hasn't contacted him, but let's say they do. He said, my body can get through that. He said, when I was training for bare knuckle, he said it would be time to go home. And I had literally been through 25% of what my workout would have been for MMA. So for fighters over the age of 40, even those guys getting into their 50s who come from MMA, as Lytle explained it, and it was genius, and I never thought about it this way, it's not the fight, it's the camp, it's the preparation. You know, I mean, I've grappled, not very well, but I've grappled for a long time. I started in Sambo, and then I went into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I love doing no-gi, and I have for a long time now. That's not easy on your body. And I'm not training for a fight, and I'm not going with killers. And if I am, they're not trying to kill me. That's a toll on your body. And then all the wrestling that you're doing. A lot of guys have a judo coach, and that's such a brutal sport. I think judo's tough run. I did judo a little bit. I was awful at it. I think judo is one of the most difficult things on your body. So that camp to get through. So if a guy like Houston Alexander can win and say, that was a quarter of what my camp would be for an MMA bout. Yeah, I'm going to try this again.
Yeah. I just got done saying earlier tonight that you think you're in shape and you think you got cardio until like you roll jiu-jitsu.
Man.
And I'm telling you right now, in your 40s, training for an MMA fight and having to roll every day and wrestle. Oh my God. I'm going to be 40 in 2-3 months from now. And I couldn't even imagine. No.
Well, and you think if you're a guy like Chris Lytle or Houston Alexander, everyone is going hard on you. First of all, you're not training against anybody who's not a high level guy, and they're probably younger than you, and they're probably in a little bit of awe of you. So they're going to go 1,000 miles an hour. They're not trying to. It's not like me taking the adult no-gi class once or twice a week and having a friendly 90-minute roll. I mean, these are killers trying to kill you in the gym, and then you get to sparring, and then you get to wrestling, and then you get to Muay Thai, and that's where the body breaks down. But I never really thought of it in those terms, and I think Lytle really hit on something. He could get through the fight and get back into the UFC, and there are people he knows that he could beat. There are people he knows who would beat him, but there are people he knows on their roster he could beat, but he could not get through that camp.
Yes, well said by him, for sure.
Yeah, Chris is the man, isn't he? He is so great.
He is.
Chris is, I'll tell you, Chris is somebody who I long admired, and he was in BKFC too, and then he started commentating because it was originally Antonio Tarver and me, and they had Chris do the prelims on BKFC 4 and up through the Malinaji card, and I think that was 6 or 7 again. I don't remember the numbers. I can tell you it was June 22nd, 2019, the Malinaji Lobov card in Tampa. And after that, we did a 3-man booth, and after that, the decision was made that it would be Lytle and me, and I think Lytle's amazing. I mean, he's as good a commentator as he was a fighter, and he's one of the greatest welterweights in the history of MMA. He sees things so well. He picks up on so many fine points, and he really does his homework, and that shows on these broadcasts.
To put out how cool of a guy Chris Lytle is he's somebody. Obviously, we've said we've followed the sport for a long time. UFC 1, Yeah. We know who Chris Lytle is. We went to Birmingham, Alabama to cover BKFC 17. And we went to the bar. We finally arrived. We went to the bar. We're like, let's get a drink.
Right.
We see Kevin Smith, right?
Yeah.
And Kevin Smith knows us because we've had his fighters on here and everything. And he's like, hey, I'm over here having a drink. He doesn't say with who. He just says, grab a couple drinks, come over here and sit with me. Cool. We're like, all right. So we asked the bartender, hey, we need a couple drinks. I turn around and I look over and I'm like, I go, hey, Kyle, I think Kevin Smith is sitting with Chris Lytle right now. So Kyle looks over. He's like, no fucking shit. Are you going to be kidding me? Right? So, we're both like just two grown men about to geek out on, Chris Lytle sitting at the over here. We got to go sit down. He's invited us. We can't tell him no. Obviously, we're going to go over there, right? Just got to, go. So we go over. It was like any old day. I mean, we sit down. He's like, hey, what's going on? My name's Chris, as though we don't know who he is, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Hey,
that
what's
guy.
going on?
Yeah.
Hey, how are you? My name's Chris. Nice to meet you. And we just sit down like we've known him for, our whole life. And he talked to us for like an hour and a half, 2 hours.
Yeah.
And it was awesome. He tells us about his, being a part of the fire department, fighting, what he does outside of fighting, commentating, everything. I mean, it was awesome. I mean, we just sat there and talked like a few friends, like we've known each other forever. And then at the end of the night, hey, see you later. I mean, what an awesome guy. And it must be a pleasure to work with him on all these events. Cause I mean, he's just a very inviting, very nice guy. And you wouldn't normally think when people think about big name fighters or just famous people or anybody like that, you think that they're going to be kind of standoffish or push you away. And man, you would never even know if you didn't know, you wouldn't know. Cause he doesn't put that off,
Yeah, no. And you know what? He really is the norm in this sport. I've been so fortunate to have met most, if not all of the big names in this sport. And the vast, vast, vast majority of them are really good men and women. And and I have a personality, thankfully I get along with everybody, and usually people, as the commentator, if you're going to be nice to anybody, they're usually nice to the commentator, even if they've never heard of me or have no idea who I am, just because they know you're the guy who's going to be talking about them on television. But if you ever do have an issue, it's usually a very young, inexperienced fighter, and that's because they're terrified. And then they'll usually come up to you afterwards, after they take their beating, and apologize. But some of the biggest names. I mean, Tito Ortiz is a fantastic guy. I mean, we had a really nice conversation, and I knew he was not hurting physically, but I knew he was embarrassed, but still gracious enough. He was walking out actually and saw me and took time to talk, And I mean, when I first met Fedor Emelianenko, I had that experience like you did with Lytle. MMA is a sport of really good people. And a lot of that is the fact that, all through his run in the UFC, Chris Lytle was still working as a firefighter and a paramedic. So many fighters have other jobs. I mean, that other job might be coaching jiu-jitsu, or might be running a gym, or coaching high school wrestling. But it's a very select few, even in the UFC, who don't have a job. I mean, I'm buddies with Charles Rosa. I saw him in Miami. Charles Rosa is a chef at a really high-level restaurant. So they're stars, but then they go back to their lives, and that has more of a humbling experience, I think, than if you're just this athlete. But it's just such a sport of really good people. It's a sport of stone cold killers, but really good, genuinely nice people.
Right.
I compare Chris to Leonard Garcia with me.
Like, what another great guy, huh?
My experiences with Leonard, I feel like Leonard Garcia might be the nicest person I've ever met in my entire life. He's like the most humble, nicest freaking person I've ever met in my life. Easiest to talk to. And Chris is very much like Leonard. Like they're cut from the same cloth, I believe. Yeah,
absolutely. One thing that's been so incredibly cool for me in BKFC is, as the hardest of hardcore UFC fans, and having never commentated for the UFC, there are guys like Lytle, Leonard Garcia, Chris Lieben, who I never got to commentate because they spent basically their entire careers from the time that they made it in the UFC and retired from the UFC, and I get to commentate them. And then there have been a slew of guys who I commentated in Bellator, and then we circle around. Mike Richmond being one, Dakota Cochran being another, Joey Beltran. I'm still in touch with Bjorn Rebney. In fact, I was texting with him earlier today, and it's become kind of the running thing now. Every show we do the Bellator group picture, because there's at least 2 or 3 Bellator alum on every card. Sometimes might be someone like a Ronnie Rogers, who just fought 2 undercard fights, but still Bellator alum. And we'll do almost like the group photo or the class photo, and I'll send it to Bjorn. And it's like a prideful, almost like a dad moment for Bjorn Rebney. Like, wow, look what my kids have done. They've grown up and done this. That's really rewarding to me as a commentator. At BKFC 1, here's Beltran, who I knew and I hadn't seen since Bellator, and that was so much fun. Tony Lopez, I first commentated when I was working for M1 in South Korea in 2008. They brought him in to lose against Victor Nemkov, and he smashed Victor Nemkov in Seoul, South Korea. Johnny Bedford was on a 1-fight undercard deal for Bellator in May 2010 in Dallas. He won, and then they didn't sign him, and then he goes to the UFC. Nick Mamlis had fought in Bellator, all these big BKFC 1 guys, and it's just continued, and that's so rewarding. People like Leonard, as you said, and Lieben and Lytle, and Rico Rodriguez. Well, I did commentate Rico in Bellator, but these UFC stalwarts who I had never commentated, and I get to, and then guys who circle back to me. Houston Alexander on this most recent card being another one. I love that as a commentator.
Quite the journey that you've been on as a commentator.
You're not kidding, man. I'm telling you. Shawnee, Kansas. I don't know, man. I don't know. That's why I take nothing for granted. That's why I'm always in a good mood. The next time you hear me complain will be the first time I complain. I'll tell you that.
Before
I was going to say, we got to do a quick speed round, but I think Mike's going to hit on something real quick.
You're going to ask the same question I was going to ask?
Go ahead, Mike. Go ahead.
Diet Mountain Dew.
Diet Mountain Dew. Absolutely. Yeah. It's so I have been doing this for years. And so the reason is I like to drink room temperature drinks when I commentate. I'm physically addicted to caffeine. I have one vice. I do drink alcohol, but alcohol for me is not a vice. So the one vice I will say that I have is caffeine. I'm a big caffeine head. I'm just a huge caffeine addict. I really am. I'm not proud of it, but I am. My caffeine delivery of choice is Diet Mountain Dew. I'm not a big fan of sugar, but I want that caffeine delivery. I drink a lot in real life. I don't drink that much. I don't drink 2 liters. I'm sorry.
Does Mountain Dew pay you at this point?
No, but man, people are trying to get me sponsorships. I don't know what it's going to take. Maybe if I were a golf commentator, I would get it. I don't know, but people are trying. The publicist Bernie Bramsell for Triller was just saying, Sean, I'm going to get you that Diet Mountain Dew sponsorship. But I've been doing this for years, and like I'm so let's say eccentric on this. That like when I go to Myanmar or when I go to Russia, in my checked baggage, I'm putting 2 liters of Diet Mountain Dew because it's not the easiest drinking to find outside of the U.S. and Canada. One time in Russia, I was there for like 2 weeks, and the guy opened up his like 2 liters.
I've actually
like, are you giving these to someone as gifts? I was like, no, I'll actually be drinking those over the next 2 weeks, sir. Thank you very much. And they let me clear customs.
My wife is a Diet Mountain Dew drinker.
All right, there are many of us.
There's not. I was gonna say people break her balls about that. Like Diet Mountain Dew, gross. Like who drinks that?
There are not. John McCarthy is the referee. Rob Hines. It's a small few of us. When I'll see people buying, I'm like, wow, really? I thought it was just me. But so I've been drinking this for years and years. It was a practical reason. I'm addicted to caffeine. You have to think on show days. You know, a lot of these broadcasts that I'm on are 4 and 5 hour broadcasts. You know, we have prelims online, things like that. I want to keep my voice very, very wet. I want to keep hydrated. It's not even the hydration. It's probably psychological, but I want to keep my vocal cords moist. I don't want sugar. So I have a 2 liter of Diet Mountain Dew. People think I'm drinking one sitting. It's an insane amount of liquid, I realize, but that's being consumed over like 6 or 8 hours. It's still insanity, I realize. So how this becomes a thing, and Knucklemania at the end of the night, our photographer takes a photo and he puts on Instagram, and he shoots just these amazing Phil Lambert. He's one of the best fight photogs right in the world. You guys know Phil.
Yep.
So it's the end of the night. We're off air. I literally have the end of my bottle. That's a long show. We had like 14 fights. I'm going like this, okay? So it's up. It's a funny shot. And I think I put it out on my social. He put it out on his. Nate Shook, our matchmaker, was like, oh, Sean, that was funny. How did Phil ever Photoshop that in? I said, Photoshop, dude. I go, how many shows have we done together? We worked together for years. You don't realize? He goes, no, I never noticed. I'm like, dude, every show in the world for the last how many years, I have a 2 liter of Diet Mountain Dew that I'm drinking throughout a show. He goes, oh, I never noticed. The very next week, I'm in Cheyenne, Wyoming, doing Lion Fight on Fight Pass. And literally is an inside joke for one person and one person only, and that's Nate Shook. I get the 2 liter, and I'm like, see, big boy, here we go. This is what it is. Put it on Instagram, and somehow it's become a thing. So because of their reaction, I've been doing it on every single show now. Yeah. I don't expect PepsiCo, who owns Mountain Dew, to send me money, but if they sent me product, that would certainly be nice. That would save me thousands of dollars a year.
I have to tell you, they should, because I don't see anything about Mountain Dew unless I see a picture of you holding Diet Mountain Dew. Because like I'm not like.
How have they not heard about this? Seriously, how have they not heard about this?
What's funny is I have a golf league on Thursday nights after work, and I golfed earlier today, and one of the guys at my league was like, "Yo, you got a triple header tonight, right? You got 3 guests." I go, "Yeah." He goes, "What's up with the dude with the Mountain Dew?"
That'll be my legacy. Pride, Bellator, bare knuckle, Triller, and I'm the Diet Mountain Dew guy.
Oh yeah, because you used the picture, right?
Yeah, no, I had to use the picture. I thought it would be hilarious to put you in there holding the bottle of Diet Mountain Dew.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. No, so we do it. It's a thing, and my kids are 16 and 10. And they're both way more social media savvy than I'll ever be. So it's my 16-year-old that runs my Instagram account. So the workflow, that's a good 2021 term. The workflow is I'll try to find a professional photog at a fight. It's always Phil if we're BKFC, but whomever it is, I'll get the professional photog, take this shot. They'll text it to me. I'll text it to my 16-year-old. I'll tell her what copy to write, although she usually has a pretty good idea what to do. She's very savvy. And away we go with that photo.
Freaking hilarious, man. All right, we're gonna do a speed round with you before we let you get out of here. You've been a great guest. Let's do a.
You guys have been great hosts anytime, man. This is awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, speed round with Mr. Sean Wheelock, the man himself, Pride, UFC, M1 Global, and Mountain Dew. Here we go. Number one. What is the biggest event or fight you've ever called?
I'll tell you, Triller in April felt that way to me, honestly. Triller felt, for me personally, nothing will ever be bigger than when I did Pride because I was such a Pride fan. That's tough. In the grand scheme of things, it's tough. Those Afflictions felt huge. I don't know if anything in Bellator, the Ken Shamrock, Kimbo Slice thing. I don't know. The show that felt the biggest to me, just with the celebrities there and the attention, honestly, was that Askren Paul Triller card in April.
Wow.
It's just huge.
Kidding. You know what? It's funny you said the Affliction card because I meant to bring that up earlier. That card with Fedor and Arlovsky and High and Haran, and I think Little Nog was on there or Big Nog. One of the Nogs were on there. Vitor Belfort was on that card.
Matt Lindland was on that card.
That card
was insane.
It's absolutely stacked to the
Babalu Sabral's like mid card.
Babalu, oh my God. I can't even begin to talk about how big that card was, and then Affliction just like went under. I think they were like, were they overpaying everybody or something? I don't know what.
Bobby Green was on there.
They overpaid me. I'll tell you that. Affliction definitely overpaid me. If they had any idea what M1 was paying me at the time,
Josh Barnett,
they would have reconsidered.
Yeah, Josh Barnett, Bobby Green. I'm telling you, go look up. It's called Affliction, M1 Global, Day of Reckoning. People look that up and look at that card, and this guy was coming.
Yeah, I think on Wikipedia, and I don't know if it's accurate. I think on Wikipedia on their entries, somebody actually put the purses. It's probably accurate because California is one of the few commissions that will release the fight purses. I mean, it's staggering. I think Jason High got 10-10, and he lost to Jay Haran, and Haran got 20-20. So that's $50,000 for a swing bout.
Yep,
I can tell you this without
10,000 for Jason High. Yeah, Jason Mike, 45, including 25.
Tell me if I'm right. Do you have it pulled up right now, Mike? Did Andre Arlovsky make $1.5 million that night?
Yes, he did. Yep,
I remember that. I remember Andre Arlovsky made $1.5 million to fight on that Affliction card. What?
You know what? Emelianenko made $300,000 with no win bonus, according to
I will tell you, as the guy who got on that show because I was working for M1 at the time, he made a lot more. I should say they paid Fedor a lot more. Whether that money trickled down to Fedor, I don't know. But there was all of this backdoor money and pay-per-view money and Affliction money. I mean, I heard it was something like $2 or $3 million. Again, that was the Fedor's team. How much actually got to Fedor Emelianenko because he's no longer with that management? It may have been that number. But, anytime you see those, that's what's reported to the Athletic Commission. There could be signing bonuses. There could be sponsorship bonuses. There's definitely pay-per-view bonuses in there. There might be win bonuses. There might be appearance fees. There might be bonuses for going to the press conference. None of that shows up in the commission contracts.
Wow.
It's nuts. I remember that card. But his answer to that, if we don't remember, it was the Paul Askren.
I think.
Triller card. Here we go. Number 2.
If you weren't commentating, what job would you be doing now?
Yeah, that's great because I don't have many skills or abilities. I don't know. I think I would try to be a professional writer, and I would be much better at my grappling.
He says, I don't have many skills or abilities.
I mean, really, these aren't
lots of knowledge.
Transferable skills. I talk about people getting hit in the head.
You got the gift of gab. He even commentated. He was play-by-play on Blind.
That's right. I'm live.com.
Yes. That was a very nice. I'm happy to talk about that. I wish that contract still existed. That was a very nice contract when during COVID when there was no work.
You know where I heard that, right?
Yeah.
You did hear it, yeah. It's not nearly as salacious as people thought. First of all, it wasn't my definition of pornography. It wasn't 2 people. It was 1 person. Yeah. It was ridiculous. It was all done tongue in cheek. I never broke character. And it was a fun gig. I really liked that. In fact, weirdly, so the guy who hired me on that is an English guy. The company's based in Andorra. He's an English guy. Huge fight fan, which is why he reached out to me. They tried to get Joe Buck first. I don't know what listen you versus Joe Buck. And
$1 million they wanted to pay Joe Buck, and he said
they didn't pay me $1 million, but they paid me pretty well. But
good.
I've become really good friends with this guy because my wife is English, he's English. So he was going to come over actually for Knuckle Mania, but because of COVID, Andorra has been a really tough lockdown country where he lives, couldn't get over. But yeah, I was talking to him last week. We've developed a really good friendship. That is like the most mundane company when you realize it's like probably what Paul Thomas Anderson did for Boogie Nights. It's just people working in an industry. There's really nothing that exciting about it.
I heard it on Howard Stern. That's where I heard.
Oh my God.
And I was listening and I'm mowing my lawn and I go, that's Sean Wheelock. Like, I know that's who this is. And like, they played it. I'm sure you've heard the episode now. And I know you've been on the wrap up show before. So I know like you've heard this, and he was like, they loved it. And then he started trying to do it himself. And he was commentating him and Beth. Yes. So that was
you're
awesome.
Obviously a Howard guy. Are both of you Howard guys?
Yeah.
Huge.
So yeah, I'm a huge Howard Stern fan. So Richard Christie comes from Fort Scott, Kansas.
Yes.
And if you guys have a moment, I'll tell you this story.
Oh, when Richard was crying about the Chiefs winning the Super Bowl.
Yeah. So Richard comes from Fort Scott. I'm from Shawnee. Shawnee is a suburb. It was more of a small town when I grew up in the 80s. Now it's a full-on suburb. But there aren't a lot of Kansans who make it in. I don't know if I've made it or not. Richard certainly has, but maybe get onto a national or an international stage. I'll say it like that. And my first year of Bellator, Bjorn Rebney's number 2 is a guy called Tim Danaher. And somehow Tim Danaher, we were out talking, and we were talking about our mutual love of Stern. And he said, my wife's best friend is going to marry one of the Stern staffers. I said, who's that? He said, Richard Christie. I go, oh my God, I'm a huge Richard Christie fan. He's like, you know what? I'll put you guys together. And he gave me Richard's email, and I emailed him. And I've hung out with Richard loads of times. He doesn't come into Kansas too often, but he's coming. We've been to Royals games together. Every time I'm in New York, we get together. He's the nicest, coolest guy. He just bought his first house, and he was calling me and telling me he bought his first house. He's always lived in an apartment in Queens since he's been with his wife. But so Richard got me on wrap up. Richard, I told him about the gig for I'm Live, and he said, I'll push it or I'll pitch it. And then like nothing happened. And then like 3 months later, Richard called me and said, it's going to be on the show today. It's going to be on the show. But you never know with Howard because he is so unscripted. They're not going to tell Howard what to say. Howard is Howard. If Howard liked it, and thankfully he did, he was very kind. If he didn't like it, he would have tortured me. And thankfully he liked it. So I'm sitting there, and normally it's I don't want to sound like I'm jaded because I'm far from jaded, but I don't have a lot of wow moments because I'm such a Stern fan. That was no wow moment. I have a theory that anything that was big to you as a kid and you get to experience that as an adult takes you back to your childhood. For someone like me who was a huge fan of Stern going back to the 80s and into the 90s, when Howard Stern is talking about you, even if he had destroyed me, but that he was saying really nice things about me, that was super cool, man.
Imitation, right, is the highest form of flattery.
Oh, yeah, right, for sure.
And he was imitating you. You have amazing. A guy, biggest radio personality ever. In my opinion, the best.
Yeah.
Oh. And he's imitating you. I mean, how awesome.
It was the coolest. Yeah. As soon as they got off air, Richard called me and I was like, dude, thank you so much. That was a huge thing. Far more people heard me on Stern than actually was aware of that I did that. But it was it was ridiculous. I have my boundaries on that, and weirdly, I said, first of all, I don't consider a naked woman pornography. That's not pornography to me. And it was just one person. So what if it wasn't? But that's what it was. I don't care about any of that. I said, going in, I said, I'm not going to swear and I'm not going to disrespect any women. That's fine. Because even these women, you want to think everyone has perfect bodies. If you want to be some snarky idiot, you can rip apart everybody, even the most beautiful people in the world. I said, I'm going to be totally respectful. I'm not going to break character. I'm going to play this straight. And they said that's what we want. And we did about 20 demos until they got exactly what they wanted. And then we did it. It was a lot of fun. And I'd love to get that work again. That was a really cool contract.
That was awesome.
Freaking awesome.
I gotta find it I gotta find it because I was trying to find it so that we could just play like a small
behind the paywall.
I couldn't.
You have to subscribe.
I have the subscription to Silliest, but they have a sample that if you go on imelive.com, it says if you want to hear what Howard Stern said about this, click on this link. But every time I sign in, it doesn't let me listen to it. So I'm like, what is going on? I have the subscription. But anyways.
All right, number 3. Here we go. Favorite martial arts movie of all time?
Oh, Bloodsport. Come on. Bloodsport. Yes. Absolutely. As a child of the 80s, Bloodsport. And if you go back, is Fight Guys, if you go back and watch that now, Paco, God, is that good in Muay Thai. And he's a French guy. I cannot think, or he's either French or Italian. I cannot think of the actor's name. Boss Rutan, right. Boss Rutan knew him and had trained with him and said, that guy was a stud. But it's that real, right? It's that real Thai style.
Yep. Yeah,
and I didn't know that. Being a kid from Kansas, I had no idea. He would have destroyed Von Dam in a real fight.
Him and Van Damme were trading.
That's right. Yeah, that's exactly. Right. Oh, I adore Bloodsport. Yeah, but Bloodsport would be 1 through 10 actually for me.
And number 11 would be The Last Dragon. Who's the?
I would say Rocky 4, but I don't know if that's martial arts.
It's combat sports. We'll give it to you. Number 4, Mike. Here we go.
What's the best practical joke you've ever played on someone?
You know, I'm from Shawnee, Kansas. We don't do that really well. I'm not really a practical joke person. I'm not holding back on that. You guys see I'm extremely candid. That's just not my style. I've never really done that. I just don't really give people a hard time or play a practical joke or anything. I just like to have fun and be with my friends and hang out and enjoy myself. That's just not something that I do. I know that sounds really weird and is a cop-out answer, but people who know me are like, no, that's pretty much how Sean is.
That's fair enough.
No, I like a horrible answer. But sorry, I wish I had a better story for you.
Next time I like the bust balls. Next time you're hanging out with Chris Lytle, just saran wrap the toilet real quick.
Yeah, right, there you go.
I just wouldn't want somebody doing shit back to me. You know, that's my thing. Right. Like, I like to bust balls, but you pull a practical joke on somebody, you got to be ready at all times because something's coming back. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Look at this guy, Brian Sosha, in the comments. Sean is the absolute nicest guy in the world. There's a good comment from the Chick Magnet.
Sosha's awesome. Sosha. Yeah, Sosha, he's been such a great addition to our crew. I really like Brian. He's such a cool guy.
He was on last night right after Chris Lytle.
Yeah.
Yeah, Brian's awesome. You know, Brian was, I'm sure he told you, he was a professional wrestler. Mm-hmm. And all I ever want to do, Brian will attest when we're out to dinner, I just his pro wrestling stories because I am such a mark.
Yeah, we talked a lot of pro wrestling with him. We tried to come up with like 10 trivia questions about wrestling that we thought were going to be hard, but that friggin' guy had the answer in his pocket.
Oh yeah,
everyone.
Oh, yeah.
It was 1/2 of a second after the question was, and the answer was out. I was like, Jesus, I thought we had some tough ones, but he threw it right in our face. Last question for the speed round. Here we go. What is the silliest thing you've ever gotten upset about?
You know, the only thing that it would be something with my kids probably, and not that I'm mad at my kids. I can tell you my kids are 16 and 10. I've never yelled at my kids. I'm just kind of this guy all the time. Probably if somebody is slighted that I would have to think about that. Probably if I felt that somebody slighted my kids. Actually, I'll give you a good one. So some kid in my older daughter's class, she's a sophomore in high school. I guess there was a TikTok thing where you're supposed to steal something from school. I don't know if you've heard about this.
No.
Or not. I don't. I guess because none of us are 16-year-old girls, but I have a 16-year-old daughter. So there's some TikTok thing where you're supposed to steal things from school. I guess I'm hearing this from my daughter. A kid in her class who she's friends with took a VCR. I thought, first of all, why is there a VCR in school? Second of all, it must have weighed like 84 pounds, but okay. And then they pulled my daughter in, like getting her to turn state's evidence. I was upset. That's silly. It's silly that somebody stole the VCR. It's silly that a school has a VCR in the year 2021. And it's pretty silly that my kid, who's an amazing kid who would never do anything dishonest, was called in to turn state's evidence. And I said, I'm going to go have a conversation with your principal, but they asked me not to. My family asked me not to.
That works.
That's a silly thing. If it were me, I don't care. I really don't ever get upset. But I don't like anything that's targeted on my kids.
See, I would expect like an old elementary school to still have a VCR or whatever, but not a high school.
Not like a rich suburban high school.
A rich suburban high school. What the hell?
I know, a VCR. I was like, hide the 8 tracks. Oh my God, do you have a laser disc player that someone's going to steal next? What is going on with this school?
I had to go to friggin' Savers to go get a VCR so that I could watch like old home videos that I found when we were moving. Like, how the hell you find a VCR? What the frig?
You got to go to eBay or whatever. No.
I still have one working VCR for the sole purpose of I was nerdy enough to have actually recorded all of the UFC pay-per-views on VCR, on VHS. And so I have one working VCR, but they are so heavy. I mean, they really are heavy. So it's an impractical thing to steal. And then when you consider the weight as a teenage girl, I don't know who this kid is, but I think she must be extremely strong because VCRs are not a light thing. It's not like a DVD player.
Right.
Yeah, that might be targeted next. They might just be working their way through technology.
You're not sliding that in your backpack,
I know, exactly.
Yeah, Joe Ivy says they were about $500 back in the day too.
There you go, right?
You could probably get a VCR for $25 at a pawn shop right now.
Maybe the kid was going the bonnet.
Yeah.
Someone must know about this. Someone else must have teenage kids and knows. I think it's TikTok, where you're supposed to steal like random things from school, or so I've been told.
Weird.
God damn kids.
Exactly.
That's freaking hilarious. Well, Sean, you've been a great guest. I loved having you on. This week has been like a hell of a week for getting personalities from the BKFC on. For all the people that have been tuning into the fights and seeing all the fights and loving all the action, they hear you. They see Brian Sosha, they hear Chris Lytle, and now we got to have you guys on the show, so our audience gets to hear the voices behind the production. So it's really a nice honor to have you guys on this week. And before we let before we let you go ahead and shout out, like, what should we stay tuned to? What should we tune into? Anything you want to say?
Yeah, I try to be very, very responsive on social media. My 16-year-old, the kid who did not steal the VCR, by the way, but was compelled to turn state's evidence and did not. She's been pushing me towards Instagram with the Diet Mountain Dew photos, but I'm on social media. I think it's Sean Wheelock Official, I believe. I'm still on Twitter. I'm on Facebook. I always do my best to respond to everybody who's out there. The thing I always want to promote is my book with Art Davey. It's called Is This Legal? The Inside Story of the First UFC from the Man Who Created It. And for those of you who don't know, despite a lot of claims from people who are making things up, Art is the creator of UFC. He's enshrined in the UFC Hall of Fame as the only creator of the UFC. You can still find the book on Amazon. I think it's in Barnes & Noble. You can go to the website and get autographed copies directly from Art and me, and that's isthislegalthebook.com. It basically tells, in under 300 pages, it's a quick read, the 4 years of Art's life, 1989 through 93, when he quit his advertising job, spent his life savings, and created something called the Ultimate Fighting Championship.
Is there pictures?
I'll get you guys Art on the show. I mean, that's the greatest interview in the world. I'm having dinner with him tomorrow in Vegas, and we're together at the Ringside Physicians banquet. I'll get you guys Art. That's the guest you want.
We will absolutely do that.
He's got some Taylor Tooley stories. Ask him about Taylor Tooley at the strip club the night before the Gordeau fight in Denver. That's
my God! If we get Art Davies on here, we'll be indebted to you forever. We'll steal all the VCRs. We'll steal all the VCRs. We'll bring them all to your house. Hey, and shout out to your daughter for not narking on anybody.
Yeah, I know, right? Good for her. Good for her.
Yeah.
Nobody needs that. And does your book have pictures? Because we have a bunch of soldiers. A lot of the guys that we run with don't like to read unless it has pictures.
Yeah, no, it definitely does. And I wrote it to move. I think it's like 285 pages, and it moves. And I'm a big reader, but I want books that move and drive through and have a narrative. And so many people who I've talked to who read it told me that they read it in 1 or 2 sittings, and I wrote it that way. But it's Art's story, and it's the true story, despite a lot of bad, goofy counterclaims out there. And Art tells you where he succeeded. He tells you where he failed. He tells you his missteps. He tells you the things he did right, and he tells you the things he did wrong. And I honestly, of everything I've done in my career, that book is what I'm most proud of.
Awesome.
Well,
yeah, you guys were great. You guys were awesome. I so appreciate you having me. Thank you. I'll do this again anytime.
Absolutely.
Right. Well, thank you so much for coming on, and we'll catch up down the road. We probably won't see you guys at the next couple of events because we have military stuff going on.
Understood.
Or just travel expenses. But New York and Miami, November,
100%.
We'll be back.
Yeah, it'll be the first time in the state of New York. That's great. Then back to Miami, and then I think we go to New Mexico. So we'll definitely get together. Lydell and I'll buy you guys a drink, all right?
All right. Sounds good. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye. Take care.
All right, dude. Well,
that was fantastic.
I guess, that was great. And I guess we lost Houston. Houston, we have a problem, Mike. Is that stupid to say?
I noticed that. No, I like it.
No, I mean, he's been very responsive. I don't know. He was DJing earlier today, as Sean had said during that interview that he's a disc jockey, and he had a gig going on earlier tonight that he was going to leave it and come straight. He said, give me a half an hour after my gig's up, and then I'll come on with you guys. But I haven't been able to get a hold of him, so we'll reschedule with Mr. Houston Alexander soon down the road. Either way, Sean Wheelock was nice enough to talk to us for
held it down
for an hour. That dude's awesome. I feel like he could have kept on talking too.
Yes.
And if he gets us Art Davies, man, that's freaking great.
That would be fantastic.
Yeah, as a diehard MMA fan from day one, like that'll be amazing. Other than that, would we have anything going on this weekend? Any events this weekend?
Kyle, there is an event, I believe. It's, I was talking about this earlier with cousin Roman. You want to play some darts, Roman from work? And I'm going to tell you, it's nothing fantastic. Ain't nothing great going on.
It must not be, because I don't even know what the hell it is. I honestly don't even know of any combat sports going on this weekend. I must be out of the loop. I've been hanging out with my 6-year-old for the last 3 days during COVID quarantine.
So it's Anthony Smith and Ryan Spann. That's what it is. I was just talking about this morning. Yeah. And
there's Bellator Saturday night as well.
Yeah. So like Ariane Lipsky is going to be fighting. What's her name? Joaquin Buckley is fighting. I mean, it's, what? Here's the thing, though. We've learned that when we have these like silly cards, not silly, but like cards that like we're not really underwhelming cards,
they end up being fantastic cards.
They do.
On paper, the underwhelming ones on paper usually show up to be great cards. So
they do. They really do.
Yeah, you know what? We're gonna do this. We're gonna circle back with Sean Wheelock. We'll get Art Davies on this show, and we'll do a little history lesson for everybody. But until then, right now we're gonna call it a night. We want to thank everybody for tuning in. Go ahead and like and share the page. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, and go to thefightersfriend.com, buy yourself some stuff, use Mish code, promo code MISH20, get 20% off. They have THC free products now, CBD oils and stuff like that for all you first responders and military people that can't be putting that THC in your body. And also go to Next Level Subs, use promo code MISH10 and buy yourself some supplements and get jacked.
Yeah, Brandon Lambert, come over here and rub me down with some of them lotions.
Yeah, rub me down with some of that lotion. Other than that, you got anything else, Mike?
I do not. I love you all. Thank you.
All right. Peace out.